He was arrested for battery on an elderly person, and they were both old. It's 7 o'clock at night, and he's screaming at the prosecutor, the one who's supposed to be advocating on his behalf. Building that trust is key. They don't have to like you. Liking helps, but they have to trust you, and they have to believe that you're genuine and you're not some scummy lawyer.
Welcome to Celebrating Justice, presented by the Trial Lawyers Journal and Cloudlex, the next-gen legal cloud platform built exclusively for personal injury law. Get inspired by the nation's top trial lawyers and share in the stories that shape our pursuit of justice. Follow the podcast and join our community at triallawyersjournal.com. Now here's your host, editor of TLJ and VP of Marketing at Cloudlex, Chad Sands.
Welcome back, friends. In this episode of Celebrating Justice, Adam Rossen shares his unique path to becoming a trial lawyer, initially pursuing pre-med in college before following his true passion for criminal defense. To get to the stories, from DUI defense to elder abuse by another elder person to a 5-year self-defense dispute, I asked him, why did you want to become a trial lawyer?
Growing up, I wanted to be either a doctor or a lawyer, and I loved watching Law and Order. And I'm the type of person that if I speak up, I speak my mind, I speak up. So of course, growing up, it was always, oh, you're so good at arguing, you should be a lawyer, blah, 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 right? And I decided I wanted to be a doctor, and I started pre-med undergrad at University of Florida. And after midway through my first year, I was like, oh, hell no. And I was like, I really want to be a lawyer, but it was always trial law for me. I just didn't know, was I going to do civil litigation like personal injury, or was I going to do criminal? And I always loved watching Law and Order and was always fascinated about criminal, work. And actually one of the reasons why I disliked law school so much was because it was all theory. And I was like, day one, I'm like, get me in the courtroom. I want to be this trial lawyer. And I didn't even get to do any of that until my third year. So I really didn't like law school, but I was a certified legal intern at the Broward County, which is Fort Lauderdale, Florida, state attorney's office. And I got to try 5 cases before I ever graduated law school. And I was hooked. This is it. I love criminal law. I want to do this. Standing in front of 50 strangers, 30 strangers is at the same time, on one hand, it's terrifying. And on the other hand, it's the biggest rush you'll ever get. And being able to give a closing argument or grill a witness, and waiting for that jury to come back with their verdict. Once they have a verdict, that is the biggest rush to me. And I loved it. I loved being able to try to convince people that my side was right and being able to argue passionately about things that I was passionate about.
And did you start in criminal defense from the very beginning though? I mean, I know you said you were the intern. Did you right. do any other practice areas?
So I did. So I didn't have good grades in law school because I just did not like it. So it's not like I could pick and choose where I go. But most of the people that have the best grades, they go into big law anyway. And then they're making really good money, but they're working 80 to 100-hour weeks and they're miserable. So I interned at the state attorney's office. I loved it. I not only the trial work, but I really loved the criminal law aspect. So yes, that's where I started working there upon graduation. And from there, I was absolutely hooked. And well, it's funny, a lot of my friends who are personal injury lawyers, they're in trial once or twice a year, if that. Most of them are just handling pre-litigation. So they're not real trial lawyers to begin with. I mean, there's some of the big guns that are, and they handle really complex cases. But the vast majority of personal injury lawyers, at least down here in South Florida, they're not even trial lawyers. They're just, they just push paper and demand letters, and they're not really in the courtroom that much. It's all pre-litigation.
So I talked to a lot of personal injury attorneys, and a handful of them said they wanted to be doctors before they became trial lawyers. So you're not the first there. And similar to them, you kind of started on the other side, right? On the prosecution. Right. And then you came to the, defense. I talked to a lot of personal injury who started on defense and then went to the plaintiff side. Talked a little bit about that, how you made that transition, kind of why you made the transition, and what skills and perspective it brought.
It was definitely some positives, some negatives, right? So that's where I interned, and I really liked it. Now, a lot of my coworkers had never been in trouble before. They had always lived squeaky clean lives. And that wasn't me. I've been in trouble, never been arrested, but I've definitely had my fair share of getting caught for doing stupid things and being in trouble, which I always thought made me a better prosecutor because, you know, how can you, it's much more difficult to prosecute drug crimes if you've never done drugs, or to prosecute drug dealers if you've never bought drugs or sold drugs before. So, for me, I was like, I'm a young prosecutor, and one of my friends, she's very smart, way more book smart than me. And she went 0 for 28 on her first 28 trials. And it was a little bit of a combination of, I just don't think she was personable enough. She's a little too smart. Right? Didn't have enough street smarts, but also just didn't understand the way, certain things, and she couldn't really relate it. And I watched a lot of her trials. I'm like, I'd say this differently. I'd say that differently. I would totally win this trial or that trial. So I think, that was one thing, but I really did like being a prosecutor. I liked helping people. I liked helping victims, but I also liked helping defendants when I thought that they needed it. At one point I wanted to be a homicide prosecutor, and I had set a goal for myself to get to the homicide unit within 10 years. That was a goal I had. And I was the first one promoted in my class out of about 30 people that they hired in the August 2006 class at the Broward County Prosecutor's Office. But about a year and a half in, I decided to leave because I was just a little disillusioned with it. It was a situation where I saw the same police officers being accused by the same defense attorneys about doing the same type of things to different people, different defendants, being rude and nasty and beating people up and just violating the law. And I didn't know if it was true or not. But when you're seeing the same thing over and over and over again, and then when I just kind of realized that it was all political and the people in charge really didn't care about me, I was just a cog in the wheel. I was like, I'm not helping people the way I want to, and I don't feel appreciated the way that I think I should be when I'm working really hard and I'm really good at what I do. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to start my own criminal defense firm. So my partner, my buddy, who was my roommate, and we were both prosecutors together, we basically in 2008, we said, screw it. We're going to start our own criminal defense firm. And starting off, I thought it was actually very hard because it took me about 2 years, I would say, to look at cases from the defense side. Because I would still read a police report and go, oh, it doesn't look like there's many defense issues here. I still looked at it from a prosecutor. It really took me a while to transition. And I also talked to a lot of personal injury lawyers, and everybody's different, right? But a lot of personal injury lawyers say they don't want to hire insurance defense lawyers or lawyers from the other side because they're so ingrained in the defense side, and it's going to take them too much time, too much money, too much of a lift in training to retrain their brains to do that. And it took me a good 2 years. I mean, I always had the empathy and compassion for people. That's really one of the reasons I left. I was able to help people, but to be a really good defense lawyer, especially from maybe spotting Fourth Amendment issues and police violations and knowing how to take a deposition from the defense side, it took me a good 2 years to be good. It really did. So it took me a while. So I don't actually think, it's great for marketing purposes, former prosecutor, and it was great for, I know how the police act. I know how they think. I know the policies and procedures. It was great from that standpoint. It really was, to know the psychology behind your opponent and the intimate way that the prosecutor's office worked. That was really good. But from just a pure technical standpoint, it took me a while to get good on the defense side.
You said it, everybody's different, right? What makes you unique then as a trial lawyer?
I think just being able to relate to people. I think, and I've been told, I'm a naturally good teacher. I was a high school basketball coach for 10 years. I won a state championship. I coached, all types of players, but I was very fortunate to coach some really good players. But regardless of who I coached, I think one of the things that made me good is that I'm good at dumbing down things. I'm good at explaining the why behind things. And I think I have that balance of, yes, I'm intelligent, I have book smarts, but I'm not such a brainiac where I can't speak to people or can't relate to people. So I think I've always been good about just dumbing things down, going kind of step by step, and getting people to really learn and being persuasive. I think that helps too. So I think some of those things, and building trust. Everything we do in life is is the foundation is trust. And same thing is when you're in trial and you're giving a closing argument and you're, being passionate, right, with a jury, and you're trying to explain to a jury or convince them that your side is right. Building that trust is key. They don't have to like you, but liking helps, but they have to trust you and they have to believe that you're genuine and you're not some scummy lawyer. And people walk in with preconceived notions about lawyers all the time and think that we're scummy, or especially in trial work, right? I mean, our job is to take a set of facts and spin it in a certain way. And I think that, being able to be genuine and be believable and trustworthy is very important with a jury. And like I said before, just kind of being able to dumb things down and speak on their level. And the last thing I'll say is adaptability. So when I was a prosecutor, I won some cases against some really aggressive defense attorneys. And I tend to be pretty aggressive. But this one in particular he's a great lawyer, just ultra aggressive. And I knew the only chance I had was to be the exact opposite of him. Cool, calm, collected, slow, just rational. And I had to change and adapt because I wanted to be theatrical. I wanted to match his energy, but I really thought it through beforehand. And I said, no, I know how he is. If I'm the opposite, I think I can use his, you talk about inertia. I can kind of use his inertia against him, kind of like, what is it, Aikido, right? I'm not big into martial arts, but I think that's the one where you use people's energy and flow against them, right? And their balance and momentum against them. So I did that in that case and I won, and he's an amazing trial lawyer. So really just being adaptable, I think is another key for me that's really helped me.
With what you guys do when bad things happen to good people, I mean, you guys take on a lot of different trials, white collar, federal, criminal. I mean, you must have some stories. If you could share at least one story about a trial and a case that really had an impact on you.
Well, we've had a bunch. We've seen it all. We've done it all, really. We've had one we called, so one of the last ones Mandy and I tried together, it was just a DUI, and our client blew twice the legal limit and we won. He was found not guilty, but part of it was he had a shark. He half of his butt was missing from a shark bite, and he's pulling his pants down in front of the cops saying, look, I can't do these exercises because I was bit by a shark. So, I mean, that was really fun. That was a great trial. I had one back in the day with my old partner. We called it the Grumpy Old Men trial. It was a battery, two guys living in this older folk community. They were rivals on the shuffleboard court. They were rivals in the pool room and
the bocce court.
Right. And they say that my guy took a pool cue and hit the other guy with it, on the head. And this whole thing he was arrested for battery on an elderly person. And they were both old. They were both over 65, which in Florida is the line, which 65 really is, kind of the new 55 anyway. I think the statute should be changed. But we went to trial on this, and the whole time they're yelling at each other, screaming. And I mean, it was a circus. It was a 5-minute not guilty. The jury was like, you guys are wasting our time. Not us, the prosecutors. I mean, but that was a fun one. But the one I really want to talk about was the one we had recently. And so this was an example of a case. The incident happened in 2018. So I was the primary on this, and it took 5 years to go to trial. And by the time I went to trial, the firm was different. Back then in 2018, it was me and Manny, 2 lawyers. We had 6 total people. Actually, back then we had 4 total people. Now we've grown to this 20-person law firm with all these lawyers, where I got to watch the trial and just support our team. I didn't even participate, but it was amazing because it took 5 years for this case. So our client was in a dispute with, after a hurricane, he had some work done on his house, and the person that he hired was really shady and was scamming him. And my client was a former contractor, so he knew it, and he was able to call the scam artist out. And they get to the point where it fails inspection, And then somehow miraculously it passed the second inspection. And my client goes, the homeowner, he says, look, I'm not paying you the money. I want a third inspection. And by the way, the owner of this company is not allowed to be on my property. Last time he was on my property, he threatened me, and I don't want him there. Okay. And I'm having an independent inspector come tomorrow at 4:00. So the office manager calls him, didn't tell him that she's the owner's girlfriend, and says, well, I have to be there. And he goes, you can come, but not the owner, because he didn't know their relationship. And she comes with him at 3:45. They go on to his roof. They start banging away. My client kicks out the back door into the screened porch. And by this time, the people are in the screened porch, pulls his gun and starts shooting. And he's like, get out of my house. His wife is on the phone with 911 yelling, shots fired, shots fired, shots fired. Right? The cops come and they arrest my client. They do terrible investigation. This is Plantation Police Department. They put on a rookie detective. So he's a detective. So he'd been a police officer for a little bit. This was his first case. They used it as training. They bungled the entire investigation. They basically arrested my client. It was terrible. And it took us 5 years. We found the guy on the contractor sued my client in civil court. My client won that lawsuit and got his attorney's fees paid. So he won a judgment of $5,000 and got about $80,000 in attorney's fees on this guy. We had worked this case for so long. We took depositions. We took a deposition of this alleged victim. It's 7:00 at night and he's screaming at the prosecutor, the one who's supposed to be advocating on his behalf. Right. We had to interject and say, listen, you can't talk to her that way. You need to calm down, to the own victim. Yes. And she didn't believe him, but office politics and BS got in the way. And he's yelling and bullying her. We're there at his civil deposition. We're there at his civil trial. We file in Florida a stand your ground, a self-defense motion, and the judge denied it and yelled at my client, thought my client was the bad one. Well, we get a new judge. We go to trial. By this time, the alleged victim had moved to West Virginia. We made him drive all the way down. And one of our attorneys, David Terrace, did an amazing job, was about 3 hours into what he thought was going to be a 6-hour cross-examination of this alleged victim. And it ended with the judge declaring a mistrial. The prosecutors, instead of agreeing to retry it, the prosecutors dismissed everything after the mistrial, and the judge threatening to hold this guy in contempt of court basically said, listen, sir, because the prosecutors dropped it, I'm not going to hold you in contempt. I could put you in jail for 6 months. So I want you to drive back home to West Virginia. And basically, I don't ever want to see you ever again. And so it took 5 years, but our client was finally vindicated. And I was there for that. It was a lot of drama. Here we are. 3 hours into a 6-hour cross-examination, we had 5 sworn statements of this guy where he's just so pissed off, and we caught him in so many lies, and we got him so just amped up and frustrated. He was just like, yeah, I have a brain injury, so I don't remember anything. And David was just having a field day because we had 5 separate statements of his. They were all contradictory. It was sad that we had to get there, but for our client who didn't do anything. Look, he didn't do anything wrong. He was defending his property. He was defending his house. He was, this guy told him that I'm going to make your wife a widow. That's why he said, you're not allowed on my property. What's he supposed to do? Yeah. When he tells them, he says, you're not supposed to be in my house. And then instead of them knocking on the front door and saying, hey, how you doing? They're up on his roof banging away. Then he sees them inside the screened porch. So he kicked open the door, guns blazing, and in Florida, I believe you could do that, but it just never should have got that far. And I was so happy because, I was really proud of my client because a lot of my clients would have taken lesser charges and said, okay, the exposure or the risk is too much. This is a 65-year-old man who had never been arrested before in his life with the threat of going to prison for years.
Yeah.
Oh, and they did try to offer him less reduced charges and put him on probation. He said, no, I'm not even going to take a misdemeanor. And a lot of my clients will accept lesser charges because it's just, they're playing the odds. But I was really proud of my client to say, Adam, I'm not taking anything. I'm innocent and we're going to go all the way. And he did that in the civil case and he won. I mean, he won $5,000, right? So this is silly. This was a dispute over a few grand, but he stood up for himself and he really stuck it to the guy, getting an $80,000 attorney fee award on that.
So was it like a scene in Law and Order then, where in the middle of this long cross-examination, there was like, did the judge like slam the gavel and everything kind of unspoil like right there within a few minutes and the case and the trial was over? Or did it take like
in a little bit of a less dramatic way? Yes. So it really was. It's never going to be as good as it is in Law and Order. I mean, it was kind of a little bit like the cross-examination from A Few Good Men, but a little more slow, a little more drawn out. But I mean, yeah, the judge, once basically the judge stopped it and said, I'm declaring a mistrial. Because what happened was the witness was instructed to not mention certain things. Like a lot of witnesses are, there's pretrial motions where we kind of have to narrow down what's admissible or not. And he was deliberately violating that order. Multiple times he said inappropriate things in front of the jury that he wasn't supposed to. And so the judge had to keep admonishing him and keep yelling at him, and just the tension and the frustration that this guy, I mean, he was lying all over the place, and he self-destructed, which we knew he would. That was part of our game plan. And our strategy was just beat him down so much because we needed everybody to see what I saw at 7:00 at that deposition, what our client saw, because of course he's coming in at every other court date. Oh, I'm so nice and calm and I wasn't upset, right? Basically being full of crap. And we had to show everybody what he really is like. So we did.
At CloudLex, we understand the challenges personal injury law firms face every day. That's why we've built the Legal Cloud platform to help you stay productive and keep your cases moving forward. CloudLex provides a comprehensive suite of applications and features to support every stage of intake, pre-litigation, trial, and more. From innovative case management to insightful analytics and HIPAA-secure client communication. CloudLex empowers your firm with the technology to thrive. Build your firm of the future and see for yourself at cloudlex.com. Now here is this episode's closing argument.
Biggest thing that has impacted me is something that one of my mentors, Ben Glass, has had a profound impact on my life, my family's life, my law firm, and I will forever be grateful to Ben Glass for what he's done for me, and I still consider him a friend and mentor to this day. Years ago, he told me, he said, Adam, if you are a good lawyer, if you are a great lawyer, if you are the best lawyer in your area, in your niche, then you have a moral and ethical obligation to grow your firm. And the reason that you have this moral and ethical obligation to grow your firm is that so you can help more people. You became a lawyer, criminal defense lawyer, because you love helping others. And if you stay as a solo lawyer, although you might be a great trial lawyer, you're going to be limited in who you can help. And you'll have to say no to cases, and you'll never really grow and be able to have the impact that you want to have in South Florida, in your community. So you have to grow, Adam. You have to do it. If you are what you say you are, which is that badass trial lawyer, that great criminal defense lawyer who loves people, who loves helping, and loves making your community a better place. And that has been in the back of my mind, the front of my mind, the back and the front for probably 7 or 8 years since Ben told that to me. And that has been pervasive in my firm. Manny, who's the managing partner, that's been a profound impact on him as he manages the firm, and him and I are growing this firm together. but it's about the impact that we're having on our community, our people, and our clients' kids and their kids, and really being able to just help people and have that impact. And we can't do it unless we grow the firm. And I can honestly say we have a firm that fulfills our personal and professional goals and has really made a huge impact on so many people in the South Florida area. So I'm so proud of it. And I will forever give Ben props and shout out for being so impactful in my life by changing my mindset to really look at it that way.
That was trial lawyer Adam Rossen. Thanks for sharing those stories. To learn more about Adam and his firm, visit his website, criminal-defense-dui.lawyer. All right, I'm Chad Sands. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Celebrating Justice, presented by CloudLex and the Trial Lawyers Journal. Remember, the stories don't end here. Visit triallawyersjournal.com to become part of our community and keep the conversation going. And for a deeper dive into the tools that empower personal injury law firms, visit cloudlex.com/TLJ to learn more.